Are you ready to take your business to the next level? Every day there are countless books and articles that are published offering the key on how to make your business a success. It's easy to feel overwhelmed trying to keep up and run your business. That's why Deb Creer created the Business Power Hour. Keep up on the latest trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. Let the Business Power Hour do the heavy work for you.
Good morning. Good morning. I am Deb Creer, and I am passionate about giving professionals the tools that they need to make themselves and their businesses as successful as possible. And today we're going to have so much fun because we're going to be talking about buying a type of business that already exists, which is a franchise. And we're really going to talk about how it's not maybe McDonald's. It's not, something that we hear so much about. And so please join me in welcoming Jon Ostenson to our program today. Welcome, Jon.
Thanks, Deb. Excited to be here with you. Love the show and appreciate you having me on.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. And another Atlanta person. It's always fun when I get to talk with somebody local. The cool thing about technology is we can be 20 miles apart or several thousand, and any more doesn't really matter. So cool. Well, let me tell people a little bit about you and then we will dive into this. So Joel Ostenson is a consultant, investor, author, and international speaker specializing in the area of non-food franchising. He draws on his experience as both the president of an Inc. 500 franchise system and as a multi-brand franchisee himself in serving clients across these capabilities. Jon serves as the CEO of FranBridge Consulting, where he helps consultants understand all aspects of non-food franchising in the process of introducing them to opportunities from the over 300 high growth brands that he represents. Let me say that again, over 300 high growth brands. He is in the top 1% of consultants nationwide in client deal flow and is a frequent contributor on the topic of franchising to publications such as the Franchise Journal and that little thing called Forbes. So again, Jon, welcome.
Thanks, Deb. I appreciate it. Looking forward to our conversation.
Cool. Well, I always like to find out how my guests got to where they are today. So tell us about that path that you've gone on.
Absolutely. No, coming out of school, University of Georgia, go Dogs, national champions. I went to work for Accenture and got to do some international consulting and had a great experience. Did the traditional path of going back to business school and then climbed the ladder in corporate America in some industries I never thought I'd be in. But, learned to say yes and stay open-minded. And after working for public companies for a while, could have done that forever. But and they put the golden handcuffs on you. But I had that desire that so many people have to do something a little different, something more entrepreneurial. And for me, it wasn't a full-on jump into entrepreneurship. It was more of a step into it. And that first step for me was to step into a private company. So going from a public company to a private company, served as president of Shelf Genie franchise system based here in Atlanta. Had the opportunity to serve all of our franchise owners across North America. And really, for me, that was an eye-opening experience into how franchising can provide a great path to business ownership. I got to see this across all of our franchisees. And, in the past, I'd always associate franchising with fast food. And, so it was eye-opening to me to start to understand the different types of industries out there and really see that a lot of people do not understand what exists and that, things that could be a good fit for them. So fast forward, I've got a couple of business partners. We own a couple of franchises as franchisees ourselves. So I've now sit on both sides of the table. But fortunately, we've got good people running those for us. And it allows me to spend about 90% of my time consulting and brokering deals. So as you said, we always have new concepts and opportunities coming down the wire. And, I'm vetting those, really getting in deep, getting to know the leadership teams, and then serving those up to my clients as a potential fit for them in their market. So, I get the opportunity to work with everyone from, those in the corporate world, they're looking to jump into something full time, and potentially a little more entrepreneurial, don't want to go start a business on their own. They like the idea of a franchise and what that provides. And then also those that say, hey, I've got a little nervousness around the fact that the stock market's up here, interest rates down here, only so many good real estate deals to be had. Where am I going to place additional investments, alternatives? And maybe I want to have a small hand in those, maybe not full time, but, run something on the side. And, a lot of clients that kind of fit that mold. And so, when people hear the F word, franchising, they think of me. And, I really eat and breathe this stuff and love it.
Cool. I love it. Let's kind of start with a basic question. What exactly is a franchise?
Yeah, by definition, a franchise is three things. It's a shared brand, it's shared support coming from, say, a home office or the corporate entity, and then it's some form of royalty payment or fee going back for that support. So that's what defines a franchise relationship. And franchising is not right for everyone. In some cases, some of my clients are too entrepreneurial and they want to put their thumbprints all over.
Right. They want to do their own branding.
They do, and I'm very straight up with them about that. However, for so many, franchising does create a better path to business ownership. And what I mean behind that is, it's much more than that shared brand. With a franchisor, you've got a coach on the sidelines whose interests are aligned with yours. The better you do, the better they do. You've got other franchisees in the system that are going through the same thing, testing the same marketing vehicles, let's say, or learning where the best recruiting ponds are to fish from. And so you're able to share best practices with others that are running the same business in other markets. Obviously, you've got a playbook, you've got a proven system, and if you follow the system, it's kind of hard to fail.
Right.
Obviously, some don't work out, but a high percentage do work out, especially when compared to a traditional startup. Our rate of success is extremely high. And then finally, from an exit standpoint, I always like to think about, beginning with the end in mind, Stephen Covey. When you're building a business and franchising, you're not just building cash flow, but you're also, you're not just getting tax write-offs, as a small business owner, which is great, but you're also building towards an exit. You're building that asset that's going to have a residual value down at the end, hopefully a good bit more than what you originally invested in it. And there was a study recently done that compared franchise businesses versus non-franchise across a number of industries and like kind of industries. And they found that franchise businesses typically sell for an average 1.5 times what a non-franchise business would in a similar industry. So, I think from a resale standpoint, people do see the value as well. So you're building that asset, as I said.
I love it. And in a lot of ways, it's a business in a box. As you mentioned, it's, a lot of what you have to do is already done for you. The branding, the marketing, all of those things. And, I talk with a lot of business owners who have started their own business, and they, always talk about the challenges, the things like not knowing that you have to register with the Secretary of State, not knowing, where to even operate, not knowing who to turn to for accounting, for legal, for all of those things. And, and I think that's one of the things that so many small business owners, I think that's why so many close is, we've got this great idea for this widget, for this service, but all of that other stuff gets in the way. And we just can't do it. I tell people I love my business, but there are certain things about it that I just don't like. And, it would be very nice if somehow there was, as you said, that playbook, this is how you do it. So, I love that franchising gives people that opportunity to be that entrepreneur without having to think, okay, is this a trademark name? Is this, all of those things that, as a business owner, we have no clue about.
Exactly. Not to be too cliche, but you're starting out on third base instead of first base. And
right.
So, a lot of things have been put in place and figured out for you. So it allows you to really focus on building that business, scaling it, and moving towards profitability much faster. So, when you have the playbook, on day one what it takes to become profitable, and you can start working towards that. Versus, as you said, sometimes people have an idea and maybe there's not that product market fit yet that's been proven out. And so you're trying to figure out on day one, can this be profitable? And so I'd say that is a big differentiator between the two. And again, some people are too entrepreneurial. Some people want to do it themselves. What's really interesting, Deb, is a lot of my clients are current business owners. Maybe they've already done it themselves and they say, hey, I'd rather not recreate the wheel. I've been there, done that. I've learned my lessons. I love the idea of, having something that, I don't want to make it sound too easy when I say turnkey, but
Right.
a lot of things have been figured out for you. It's interesting, when I was at Shelf Genie and we would, bring in new franchise owners, we would take them through training. And at the end of training, they'd oftentimes look at me and say, gosh, you guys are driving the marketing for us. You're answering our calls. You've got all the systems, you're helping us with the invoicing and the training of onboarding of new team members. What do we do day in, day out?
Why do you need me?
And, our answer to them was, a couple of things. I'd say the biggest thing is, that local market, you need to attract talent, retain talent, and make tough calls when needed. So if someone absolutely hates working with people, we still have a couple of franchises they could fit into, but for the most part, you've got to enjoy people, and maybe sales isn't your thing. And so your first hire is a salesperson. You're more on the operations side. So you can complement your skill set. But I think that local market knowledge, building that team, getting involved in the Chamber of Commerce or sponsoring the Little League baseball team. It's those kind of organic opportunities that having boots on the ground, having an invested interest in the business, is something that the franchisor from far away couldn't do on their own.
Right. But the nice thing is they still have the franchisor still has that very vested interest. They may have done the market research, various things, so that they're just not saying, sure, you can do this business here. They're going to go, okay, this is a good place for it. Or, hey, why don't we think about moving maybe 5 miles or, something along those lines, because they want the business to be successful also.
100%. No, the more successful you are, the more they are, but also the more successful you are, the more they're able to attract new franchise owners, because those owners are going to talk to the current owners before they buy into the system. It's what we call validation. It's a great model because it allows you to come in eyes wide open. So no, definitely aligned interest there. And, not every franchisor is amazing. I mean, it's just like any other industry. And that's why we really are careful to vet those. And, if they have a lot of experience in franchising, we have a good track record to look at. If they have a lot of experience in industry, but not necessarily in franchising, I like to then see that they've complemented that lack of knowledge in franchising with other experienced veterans around them, because I do think that franchisee relationship is very unique. It's a partnership, and there has to be that support level day in, day out.
Right. Now, when we think franchise, I think probably one of the first things we do think of is the Golden Arches. They're the one that basically started it. Them and Pizza Hut and a couple of the others, but they are the food type of industries. So, what are some of the industries? I mentioned in your bio 300 different non-food ones. I'm guessing that there are ones that we don't even know are franchises. So tell us some of the businesses. Just give us some examples of companies that are franchises.
Yeah, great question. And I'd say this question is really where people tune in and say, whoa, I never knew that.
Right.
So there's about
Walmart is not a franchise, but
no, it feels like it sometimes, but they're everywhere. So 4,000 food brand or franchise brands out there. Of those, probably half are foods. You take those out from the ones that I'm focused on. And then we vet those down, and there are different stages of growth. Some may have 5 locations, some may have 500 locations. That we work with. But the types of industries that exist and the types that are resonating today, it's everything from health and wellness and fitness to automotive to home services and property services. $600 billion market that people are just. I mean, it's a massive space of growth. Children education. Think everything from STEM training to athletic type programs. Pets are a massive area. I always say that people love their homes, their health, their pets, and their kids, and they will spend on those no matter what the economy is. So I'd say COVID was now our business doubled during COVID.
I bet.
It doubled in 2021 from the prior years.
Yeah, because people went, ooh, what the heck am I going to do now? Either by choice or by
I think it caused a lot of people to take a step back and think about the path they're on and question, hey, maybe now's the time to scratch that itch. I mean, we all have some degree of entrepreneurial itch.
Right.
Some actually scratch it, some talk about scratching it, and some actually,
some of us sold lemonade and as kids and went, no,
Exactly. And so, no, we've seen more interest in franchising over the past couple of years than I've ever seen. I mean, it really is overwhelming at times, and markets are selling out fast, for a lot of the good brands. We're always I'm trying to place my clients and compete against others in the market. But no, I'd say coming out of COVID, more and more interest in services-based businesses. Obviously, early on, it's like, hey, what is essential? Think plumbing, think, things that are non-sexy, I'd say are kind of becoming the new sexy. I mean, I did a lot of deals in home services and property services where you don't have to have a physical brick and mortar location. You can work remote. I'd say the brick and mortar is definitely coming back. And it might be helpful, Deb, just to cite some of the recent placements we've done, because I think this would be a good illustration. So, a couple of weeks ago, I placed actually 2 different clients, one in New Jersey, one that there's a 50-year-old former corporate executive, one that was a former Wall Street attorney just outside of Boston. They both bought into a gutter business that had incredible numbers on the business. It's one of the hottest things out there right now. Who would have thought? And I can get into those financials later as an example, but they bought into the gutter business, no background at all in that blue collar space, but they were thinking like a business owner. I just had a couple out in Arkansas. She's a PhD, works for the University of Arkansas, wanted to get something going on the side. She bought into a fitness business that's focused on those age 50 and above. A very underserved market with a high disposable income that cares a lot about their health, but great technology around that business. I just had a Silicon Valley executive move to Southern California and bought into a property management business, a commercial property management business. So those are just a couple of examples. We just did a renovation style business up in Raleigh. People are loving insulation and gutters and dumpsters. Those kind of non-sexy businesses are the new sexy. At the same time, we are still doing things like IV drip bars, or we're doing, children related technology, STEM training, let's say. So it really is a wide array. And I love matching people up and peeling back the onion and understanding, what do they want that day-to-day to look like? What do they want the financials to look like? Do they want a large team, small team, physical location, not? Once we kind of start peeling that back, I end up introducing them to opportunities, and over 85% buy into something that was never on their radar. It was an industry they never thought they'd be in or considered. And so that's where I have a lot of fun in my job.
I bet. Now I'm guessing probably, next to what should I do, the next biggest question is, how much is it going to cost? And I think that's the thing that so many people think is, oh my gosh, if I buy, UPS franchise, I don't even know if they are a franchise.
They are.
It's going to cost me $250,000. Give us an idea of the financing and kind of how that all works.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'd say the average deal size we do is probably between 150 and 250.
Okay.
There are certainly some. I was talking with a client this morning that we're looking at some opportunities closer to 70,000. Now, there are fewer and further between, but there are some is that low, whether it be like business coaching or cost reduction analyst. Those were 2 that we were looking at. But no, typically I'd say in the gutter business, that's one that's indicative of a lot of service-based businesses. Your all-in investment on that would be between 120 and 140. Now, if you wanted to expand into multiple areas, then it might be closer to 200,000. But that would include your franchise fee, which is usually 50,000 upfront. It would include your vehicle, some equipment, some working capital out of the gate for marketing, for paying people. That's usually included. And so I'd say that's a good estimate right there where a lot of our deals are happening. And then a lot of times people buy multiple territories. But some people, while they're self-funding, others are using SBA loans. That's a very, very common method.
Interesting.
SBA 7A loan or an SBA Express loan. I'd say Express loans are what we're seeing the most of. Those are usually for 150 and below. And the client will put down, 25% of that in most cases. And, these rates, they're not as low as your home mortgage. However, they are low from a historical business lending standpoint, probably in that 5 or 6% range. We see others that have built up, the 401ks and IRAs They're nervous about where the stock market is. They'd
Mhm.
rather tap into their retirement funds
Mhm.
to fund the business. And we have a program called the ROBS program,
Mhm.
where you set up the business as a C Corp. It's owned by the retirement plan. There are a few steps you have to go through, but
Mhm.
essentially you can utilize your retirement funding
Mhm.
without having to pay the early withdrawal penalties.
Mhm.
So there are a few creative ways that we go about it, but those are two very common ones.
I love it. Yeah. So, it's that's, I think, probably creative is the thing that people need to think about is, how can we do this? And to realize, okay, starting a business from scratch costs money. And now, granted, there are a lot of businesses that, really do, you start by saying, hey, this seems like a good idea, and you can do it for like under, $500. But at some point, money has to start going into it in order for it to be an ongoing entity. And so, it's kind of one of those things. We're talking about food, non-food. Why have you specialized in non-food, and why would somebody want to go down that path as opposed to the food side?
Couple of reasons. One, I don't have a background in food, and yet I do understand the other industries.
Mhm.
Two, I don't personally like food. And what I found is 95% of my clients don't like food from an ownership standpoint.
Right. Mhm.
We all
There's
eat
a
it,
lot
but
of stuff that goes along with those.
it feels a little too trendy. It's very employee heavy. It's very,
Mhm.
oftentimes a little more expensive on the front end doing the
Mhm.
build out,
Mhm.
and it carries inventory. So a lot of people just found there are easier ways to make money
Mhm.
than food. Now,
Mhm.
that being said, 5% of my clients love food, and I usually, send them some ideas, but we don't spend a lot of time on it. So I'd say those are the biggest reasons. I'm also a big believer in niching down and really specializing. So instead of trying to be everything to everybody,
Mhm.
I like to focus.
Mhm.
I think I serve my clients better that way.
Mhm. It's interesting. I talked with somebody on the other side of this not long ago who
Mhm.
is a franchisor.
Mhm.
And she has it's a very interesting woman. She has, I think, just six, maybe, not a lot, but indoor miniature golf. And so her brand is Monster Mini Golf, and Christina Vitaliano. It was very interesting to hear her story from, and she said, deciding to franchise
Mhm.
was a huge deal. But one of the things that she talked about is, I'm sure, something that all the franchisors do. She said, when we're having someone who wants to become a franchisee, she said, you would not believe the amount of work that we put into seeing if it would be a good fit.
Mhm.
And she said that's part of why there's not that many of them. She said, we don't want to go through that all that much. But she said, yeah, she said, in the end, it's our name that's on it. It's not Bob Smith or, Patty, whoever. It's our name. And so if something goes wrong, the business fails, whatever, she said, we're the ones that take the hit. And she said, so that's why, from the franchisor perspective, they really, really try and make sure that it's a good match.
Yeah, no, that's very wise. And everyone approaches it a little bit differently, but I'm a member of the Entrepreneurs Organization. So I work with a lot of business owners that, are thinking about scaling their business. And we oftentimes talk about whether franchising is the right path. And quite a few do go down that path. The way I see it from a franchisor standpoint is some of the benefits are, oftentimes you're able to scale more quickly. You're using other people's money. You always want employees to act like owners. Well, now you actually have owners, with a vested interest and know their local market. And private equity loves franchising. I mean, every day new announcements come out about private equity acquiring franchisors typically, for all the reasons that we've laid out. And so a lot of benefits to franchising your business. The downside, I always tell owners this, is you wake up one day and you have a lot of kids with expectations around the country,
Right.
they're looking to you for guidance. So it just changes your day to day. You have to kind of know that going in, but no, new franchisors, I always caution to not get overly excited with the first couple of candidates that show interest in buying into your franchise system, because I think that's easy to do. Instead, be very discerning, especially with those first couple as you're building out that franchise reputation. I mean, these are the guys who are going to be setting your item 19, your financial representation, for future owners. They'll be doing the validation. Now, from a franchisor standpoint, you are protected in a lot of ways with that franchise disclosure document. So franchising is regulated by the Federal Trade Commission. Every franchise system has an FDD, or franchise disclosure document. It's about 100-page document. It's got 23 different sections to it, or items as we call them. And it's probably the most one-sided document you'll ever see in your life. So, a lot of thinking goes into protecting that brand of the franchise, and all the disclaimers and such going in, so that both sides of the party, understand the expectations of the other, and ultimately, the entity can move forward.
Right. And as we said, that brand is what they're protecting. And so that's why they have their rules, their policies, their guidelines, that say things like, UPS, back to another, this is what it looks like. Here is how your employees dress. All of those things. And so, you might decide, okay, we're going to have a Hawaiian day, but it's maybe a special event that you're doing. And in some cases, I'm guessing you have to run that up the flagpole and get that approved. But, it is pretty cut and dried in many cases as to how you're functioning. But how then, because people are like, well, that sounds kind of boring. So what flexibility do people have? And obviously it depends on, varies from franchise to franchise, but what flexibility do people have?
Yeah, it really comes down to the franchisor and their willingness and openness to innovation. Oftentimes the best ideas come from franchisees that are thinking outside the box. And, in some cases, like if they're going to totally try a rebrand or something, then yes, you need permission. But in a lot of cases, it could be something that's a little more organic, and, they test things in that market. Then if it works, they're able to share that knowledge and maybe really commoditize it across the franchise system and spread that. So that's a great benefit, as the other people are trying different things in their markets. Some franchisors are definitely more open to innovation and maybe have wider boundaries and guardrails than others. So that's one of those things we like to get to know ahead of time to understand, hey, how long of a leash do I have? Rather than feeling too regimented, I think the positive is it keeps you on track. When I was at Shelf Genie and I looked across 150 franchise locations, our top ones invariably were the ones that were following the system to the T. And so that is why you buy into a franchise system, because you want to follow the system. Obviously it can't be too rigid, but those guardrails really do keep you moving in the right direction. It's just amazing. The best franchisees follow the system the best.
Right. It's funny from my perspective as a marketing firm. I have belonged to various chambers of commerce through the years. And I remember one that I belonged to in Colorado, absolutely loved it. It was the Colorado Women's Chamber of Commerce. Fabulous speakers, great attendees, but many of them were franchisees, whether they were realtors or cosmetic or insurance, all of these various things. And so I couldn't do business with them. I mean, and it was just that plain and simple, because they had their marketing already set for them. So it wasn't that I could come in and say, hey, let's redesign your website, or let's do this new brochure, because that came from on high. And that actually, it meant then we had different conversations. But, there was still, like I said, there were still some flexibilities. A lot of times it's things like how they get involved in the community, with, and things like that. But, it is always interesting from the outside marketing perspective. It's like, oh, I can't do too much for them.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good point. With digital marketing, let's say, oftentimes in a franchise system, it is common to use a similar provider. I mean, they may have some marketing people on staff that support you, but then they may also use like specialized outside firm for pay-per-click and social ads and stuff. Well, the benefit to that is that they get to look at large data. They're not just looking at your market, they're looking at all these other markets. Right. They're able to make more informed decisions. They're also, in some cases, able to utilize bulk buying power, because here you've got 100.
Advertising would be probably the biggest, example of that.
Exactly. So you're getting to do some things that a typical small business owner wouldn't be able to do because they're not scaled up. Most franchisors will allow you to do, your own organic social marketing. So they want you putting things in, hey, we're going to be at this art show this weekend, hey, look at our display, look at this 5-star review we just got from a customer. They want you putting that organic stuff. So it's usually a fine balance between the two. But yeah, they want you involved in that local community and getting the name out there.
Right. And the brand, I mean, that really is my background is the brand. And many years ago, I worked for what is now Voya Financial, but it was ING when I worked for them. And our logo was this little orange lion. Yeah. And we partnered with one of the hospitals in Colorado, and they sent me, luckily, to pre-approve something that they had done, and they had changed my lion. It was a lion. It was, it's Children's Hospital. And so now it was a lion with cubs. And I'm like, no, that's really cute, but no. And, I think that's one of the things that people forget is that brand, that logo, that's just as important as the Nike swoosh, as the Coca-Cola. I mean, all of those things. And so, you don't mess with that.
Yeah. And certainly even more so, I mean, obviously you work for an 800-pound gorilla type of company in that case. The larger franchise brands, that can, I'd say the brand can be very, very recognizable. Obviously with food, with examples we talked about, that's the case. In a lot of cases, we're talking about emerging brands. They may have 15. Here, I'll give you an example. Koala Insulation. They had 5 locations 2 years ago. They now have 250 locations.
Oh, wow.
So they may be a little more recognizable. You may have actually seen when their trucks drive through your neighborhood. But still, that's not a household name. And so you're not buying the brand as much as you are the systems and the marketing and the playbook and that franchisor support. So it is, especially outside of food, I'd say oftentimes these are emerging brands and they've got a unique niche. They've got a strong profit model. Those are the reasons we're looking to buy into, not that it's necessarily recognizable today.
Right. And of course, the other thing that the brand does is from the consumer perspective, we know what to expect. And so we know, back to the food thing, when you go to McDonald's here in the United States, at least, a Big Mac is a Big Mac is a Big Mac. And now you go, to another country and it's different, but you've got that. And the same thing goes, say with one of, with Koala, that this is the way it always is going to function. And so if you call them in this city, wherever, what to expect.
Exactly. No, and that can definitely be a very good thing, especially as brands grow over time and there's that awareness.
Right. So what, we kind of mentioned some of the hot things. What are other hot things right now that people are really just thinking, hey, this is something either, I'm going to buy into as a part-time type of thing or full-time,
Yeah, I'd say, the common thread in a lot of these conversations, especially now, but it's probably always been the case to some degree, is, hey, we know the labor market's tough. We see customer demand across a whole lot of different sectors, but knowing the labor market's tough, what can produce the results and the strong ROI with the fewest number of employees?
Right.
So, it's just fewer headaches in a lot of cases too. And some people love large teams. A lot of people don't. And so I just did a deal a week or two ago up in Indianapolis with a gentleman, early 50s, that wanted to become a business coach. So we set him up with a great system. We gave him all the curriculum and the training and the assessments, everything he needs to go out there so he's not recreating the wheel. That's attractive. People like businesses like, we've got a great laundry concept, laundromat, $5 billion industry. Again, an industry that very much needs new entrants to come in that provide
Wi-Fi. You think laundry and you think,
but if you can manage everything on your phone and be in and out in under an hour, and you've got the Wi-Fi, just a much better experience. I mean, they've been able to eat market share from others. People like things like that, or car washes, or understandable businesses. I just did one recently. It was a 10-unit oil change deal between Atlanta and Charlotte. And, the guys that bought into the business own multiple businesses, and none of them were related to automotive. They never thought they wanted an oil change. But again, once you peel back the onion, they love the fact that, hey, even 10 years from now, electric cars are going to represent under 10% of cars on the road. Average age of cars is 10 years, 12 years on the road now. A lot of those macro factors they liked. And this is a business that, provides a 10-minute oil change, not a lot of upselling. They don't have commission salespeople, and they use prefabricated buildings backed by an investor group. So you're able to get it in at a much lower cost. And then they use unused parking spaces in a shopping center parking lot.
Okay.
So landlord loves that additional revenue stream. And you can man these with only 2 people per location. Manage everything on your phone. So very much a semi-absentee type business like that is resonating. I did a dumpster business opportunity.
That's recently. A franchise?
It is. And people love that. Now, I've got a client, he's the largest franchise owner of 2 Men in a Truck moving service.
Right.
And
I know people just think that that's people saying, hey, we're 2 men in a truck. No, it's a franchise.
It is. It is. He's 39 years old in Columbia, South Carolina. He has built an over $30 million business.
Wow.
And he sources young guys through his church that, that he puts in roles of responsibility. And he and I did two deals together last year. They were totally unrelated to his core business. One of them was for a driveway company. It's driveway, and then it's rubberized paving as well. And 30-year-old business, started franchising 2 years ago. And that's a good example of, oftentimes you see these businesses, think like the ServPro type businesses. They've been around forever, but then they start franchising and then, really experience that kind of growth. So I'd say opportunities like that. Over half of my clients are real estate investors and own some real estate. So they love the idea of businesses that can complement what they're currently doing. That's definitely attractive. Some people say, hey, I know I want to be in pets. Hey, I know I want to do something related to kids. Some people say, hey, I want nothing to do with the consumer. I'd rather, call on businesses and sell to them. I'd say a big differentiator is those that like the idea of a physical location and the build out and the brick and mortar side. And then those that say, hey, I'd much rather work remote. And, maybe we have some physical space down the road, but it's much more on the back end. It's not customer facing. So really, a lot of my clients say, hey, it comes down to the numbers. I'm somewhat agnostic. Show me the return on my investment. And this is what's really eye-opening to Deb. I'll just use that again, not to harp on it, but the gutter example, just because we recently had 2 clients placed there. Really attractive margins on this business. So the business has been around 20 years, started franchising 2 years ago. They've got about 100 locations now. All in investment on that business is 120 to 140. For that, their average franchise owner is doing right around $1 million a year in revenue with a 30% bottom line margin. 31% to be exact, that they're putting in their pockets, to call it $310,000 for your average location. Some of their locations are doing as much as $2 million and did that in the very first year. And again, these are just a couple of years old. These don't have a long record. And their corporate location, up in Pennsylvania, is doing several million a year. So, when people realize, hey, wait a minute, I can do 300,000 on an investment of 130, let's call it. And I could potentially leverage that 130. They start doing the math, and I remind them nothing is easy, nothing is perfectly turnkey. But with a little bit of effort out of the gate, and then you put the manager in place, you can build out this portfolio of companies that again have not only cash flowing properties, but also that exit value down the road.
Right. And you mentioned a couple things that I think are very important, and one is that you don't have to have experience in doing whatever that is. The oil change, they were not mechanics. So it's more, they have to have that business knowledge and that business skill. And so is that, do you find that it's a mix, that you've got some people who, have that industry knowledge, or is it more, just kind of people who have the business knowledge, and then the whatever it is kind of secondary?
Yeah, I'd say much more the latter. Again, I said 85% of people, would jump into something that it wasn't on their radar oftentimes, that they have no background in. And the franchisor kind of likes that, because you're not bringing baggage in with you. Now, I do think if you have some B2B sales experience, which a lot of my clients do, then there's certain industries that may cater a little more towards that, where you could go do anything, but let's leverage some of that experience that you have, that could set you up. Oftentimes, a lot of the deals we're doing right now are in blue collar industries, and you're not reinventing the wheel, but you're bringing a white collar approach. You're marketing it differently. You've got the systems, and you answer the phone when people call, and you're able to just really set yourself apart out there and differentiate yourself. In some cases, we do have patented technology. There's one right now that's there's several businesses I'm working with that have true patents on their product, and so of course that would be a differentiator. So it is, I love learning these new business models. I love getting to know the franchisors behind them, just a lot of really good people. And again, we pick the winners, and then I get out there. I mean, I probably went on 30 podcasts last year and had additional speaking engagements, because there is so much interest in what we're doing. And yet there's so many unknowns that people have until they really get to hear more about it.
Right. Yeah. The other thing that you mentioned is that, you don't have to physically be in there running that business. especially if you've, got more than one location, more than one type, you hire the manager. And and so it's kind of that, you've got the franchisor and then the franchisee and then the managers. And for those that can't see me waving my arms, I'm making kind of like a ladder. And so again, you don't have to have that direct knowledge. So the oil change place, another example, I don't know anything about that. I hire a manager who does.
Mhm. Absolutely. No, it comes down again to your ability to work with people, to be someone that people want to work for, and you treat them fairly. And obviously the franchisor is going to provide you with ideas of how to compensate them, what they've seen work. They will train them up for you. We just sent, for one of our businesses we're invested in, we just sent the young general manager. He's 27 years old, had been at KPMG, CPA for the past 5 years. He said, "Hey, I'm ready to get out of this, out of these four walls. I want to get out there in the field. I want to talk to people and kind of utilize, be who I am." And so we gave him a little bit of equity in the company to incentivize him. And, we sent him out for a week of training out to Dallas, Texas 2 weeks ago, and they're training him up. We don't have to train him. Instead, we're there holding his hand on the sideline, on a weekly call, providing coaching support. Some referrals as well, just based on our knowledge of the local market, people that we know, commercial real estate people in this case, that we're able to introduce him to. And then he's been running with it. It's been a lot of fun. He's, in his first 2 weeks, he did over 40,000 in sales, and which exceeded our expectations. So we're off to the races and excited about that one.
Right. And it is the economies of scale, the franchisor can train 50 people at once much better in many ways than you can train a person here, a person here, a person there. And as we said, obviously the marketing, the advertising, all of those things, which is, I think, why a lot of times people don't understand that there are franchises, because they see the big marketing, the big advertising, and they don't realize, oh, hey, those are all really independent, little places.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And, I don't think it's always one or the other. I think we all are on a journey. We're all evolving as we go. We're learning new things. And, quite a few clients of mine already are business owners of non-franchise businesses. Then they buy a franchise business that either complements their core business or maybe it helps diversify. So it can work two different things. Quite a few examples. I can just share case study after case study. Or, they may have the franchise business and they say, that uncovers some needs in the market and, hey, let's go start another business. Or, a lot of cases we have couples buying into businesses and they each know the role that they're going to play. Maybe one can give a little more time and she may be, focused on the kids as well, but has some time in the mornings when they're at school or what have you. And so we see a lot of couples getting into franchising as well, or business partners, or, obviously, solopreneur as well. And, people always think about risk and, it doesn't totally de-risk it, but it does help. The success rate is much higher in franchising, but I always ask them, what is the absolute worst case scenario? Say things didn't work out and you're 6 months in and you say, hey, this isn't for me. You can probably sell it for close to what you put into the business. And so the downside oftentimes is fairly limited, especially when you get in with a growing franchise system where people are wanting to buy in that market. Very oftentimes I have clients that are, competing with other candidates for the same territories in a given market for a brand. So say my client wins that, and we usually do, then, if things weren't to work out, then that franchisor is going to say, hey, here are 30 more people that had interest in that same space.
Right.
So the downside oftentimes can be somewhat limited as well.
And you mentioned begin with the end in mind. So, you've been doing this a while, you've had your businesses and you decide ready to change, ready to retire, ready to whatever. So then what's the process?
Yeah. And so the vehicle you use for that resale can take multiple forms. It could be that
you don't just shut your doors. Hopefully.
I wouldn't advise that. You're right. Yeah. If you built a halfway decent business, you wouldn't just be shutting your doors. So, oftentimes you have franchisees in other territories around your market. So a natural exit would be to sell to one of them. In turn, you can also buy one of them. That could be a way to grow over time. Oftentimes, you could use websites like Biz by Sell or use a business broker, get it out there. A lot of my clients come to me saying, "Hey, I'm interested in resales. Do you have anything in the the Phoenix market that could be a resale of a franchise?"
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we do,
Mm-hmm.
oftentimes we don't, because people do tend to hold on to these for quite
Mm-hmm.
a while. But no, I've done a couple of resale deals in the past year, but I'd say those are definitely more of the minority of what we're
Mm-hmm.
doing. So no, there are definitely opportunities. And like I said, the franchisor may have a list of people that have shown
Mm-hmm.
interest over time in that market that they can tap into as well.
Mm-hmm. Now, and obviously, again, it probably varies depending on the franchisor. If things aren't going well, can the franchisor step in and say, "No, we're taking this back over"?
They can, and that's outlined in the franchise
Mm-hmm.
disclosure document. But by and large, you really have to be off the rails. I mean,
Right.
they don't want to go to the trouble of
Mm-hmm.
winding you down, bringing someone else in. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, that's a lot of work on their part, and they don't want to reflect that as a failure either in their documentation. So, no, they're going to do everything they can, and I've seen this firsthand of trying to support you. And it could be that they come in, they send people down, trainers to help, your team and support you. Obviously a lot of one-on-one coaching, but then they can also at times make financial concessions. Maybe you don't pay a royalty. Typically in franchising, you pay a royalty of somewhere between 5 and 8% of revenue, for the franchisor support. That's how it's structured. But it could be that they hold off on those for a period of time.
Okay.
My experience is they'll do everything they can to help save you.
Right.
But if you're going off the rails and you are totally, embarrassing the brand, then they will step in.
Well, and then of course there are other things like a pandemic. Sometimes it's just not going to happen. And so, but yeah. So okay, John. So we've piqued people's interest, and they're thinking, this does sound interesting. What now? So what are the steps that somebody takes?
Yeah, so we've really worked to streamline the process and really find the most effective and efficient way to introduce opportunities to clients. So what that looks like is, getting on the phone with me. I'm happy to talk with your listeners, but get on the phone and we'll spend about half an hour or so together. I'll ask a lot of questions. I'll help you fill in the blanks. I'll share some resources with you. I would then have you fill out a questionnaire that takes under 10 minutes, but it kind of helps dissect things a little bit more. And from there, typically a week later, it gives me enough time to check on opportunities in your market that I have in mind that could be a good fit. I check on availability and such. And then we get on a Zoom call where I share my screen and we will walk through typically 7 or 8 opportunities in your market that kind of fit the criteria that we talked about and fit that framework that we've discussed. And we talk through each of those, look at the websites, and from there, try to narrow it down to somewhere between 2 and 4 opportunities. 3 tends to be the magic number. To then make an introduction for my clients to the franchise brand. They'll have an intro call with the franchise brand, decide if they want to continue talking beyond that. You can drop out of the process at any time. And it can be an iterative process where we may drop a brand, bring another one in. But you're learning how to analyze business and how to compare. And any call that you're on, you're going to come up with new ideas of questions you need to ask the other brands. So it's great having that basis for comparison as you walk through it. And the franchisor has a pretty streamlined process. They'll go through the financials. They'll go through they have a call where they get into territory review and the FDD review. They'll introduce you to other franchisees in their system. You get to ask them questions, do what we call validation. Ultimately, that culminates in a discovery day where you spend some time, day or day and a half with the franchisor and their team, both sides deciding, is this the right fit? I hold my clients' hands through the process the whole way. We'll do touch base calls every week or two, serve as a sounding board, introduce them to funding resources, legal resources. So that's kind of the whole process and how it works. But it's entirely free to my clients, which is a great setup.
I was just wondering that. I'm like, okay, now you're a really nice guy, but you got bills to pay too. So how does that work?
No, it's I've been very fortunate. I've worked with great clients. It's been a very good living for me. And the way that I operate, I get paid by the franchisors on the back end when a deal gets done. It's very much like executive recruitment, if you think about it that way. And none of that gets passed on to my clients in any way. It's just a sales and marketing expense for them. So, no, I love going through the process. I love what I do. Getting to play matchmaker opens people's eyes.
And clearly it benefits you to be a good matchmaker.
It does. It does. No, we
Mhm.
probably placed 30 clients last year, and
Mhm.
that's a sizable number given the time
Mhm.
that it takes to work with each one. So, I've been very fortunate to have those relationships with the franchisors and work with great clients. And
Mhm.
yeah, I would love to engage with any of your listeners that would have an interest in learning more. And if nothing else, I can share some resources to kind of
Mhm.
get the juices flowing a little bit more.
Right. And I'm guessing that, there are times where people are like, oh, no, this isn't going to work for me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. People get cold feet at
Mhm.
different stages of the process,
Mhm.
or, if someone's looking for a job, it's amazing how oftentimes it's where in the process they find a job. Like it's,
Mhm. True.
I'm a big believer in activity breeds
Mhm.
activity. And when you start looking at option A and
Mhm.
B, option C oftentimes comes out of left
Mhm.
field. It's just, that's kind of been my experience in
Mhm.
life. So no, I encourage people that, hey, if there's any interest, at least start learning more,
Mhm.
and I can share some great resources. So
Mhm.
I'd say ping me. My email address is john@franbridgeconsulting.com.
Mhm.
No H in John. That's just JON@franbridgeconsulting.com. Come to our website, sign up for our
Mhm.
newsletter, and I would love to get to know you.
Mhm. Right. So, this is very interesting. We've talked about the fact that obviously the pandemic caused, a lot of major changes. Do you see that continuing with it's, we hear about, and it's worldwide, the Great Resignation. I mean, do you see that continuing? I love it. I say this pretty much every program where, every time we talk about the pandemic is, we laugh when they said, hey, it's going to be 2 weeks. Yeah, right. Because now we're getting pretty close to 2 years.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing we've got 6 months to a year at least still of turbulent. But do you see this as something that is, from a franchise perspective, just going to continue to be a
Ab-
booming market?
Absolutely. We look at a lot of data, and what it's showing is anytime you have dislocations, whether it be from jobs or
Mhm.
from people moving, it creates opportunity. And I
Mhm.
think that people are more open to the idea of, hey, maybe now it's time to build my own empire
Mhm.
instead of working for someone else building
Mhm.
their empire. Hey, I don't want to go back to the office.
Mhm.
All those things factor in. So,
Mhm.
I mean, like I said, we've seen just a boom in franchising over
Mhm.
the past couple of years. I mean, it was booming before
Mhm.
COVID to begin with. Just some of these businesses that we
Mhm.
work with now, people are loving them. But I think even more so going forward, a lot of positive
Mhm.
tailwinds from our standpoint.
Mhm.
The Great Resignation is something that I've written a lot about, and
Mhm.
it really is a big dynamic that's going to out you know outlast just the pandemic time
Mhm.
period, I believe.
Right. Now, again, we talked about the fact that, there's thousands of opportunities out there. How does somebody even figure out, is there a list, like a master list somewhere that says these are franchise companies? Again, we know, a lot of the food ones,
Mhm.
but, how does somebody even figure out, okay, hey, I'm interested in this. Are there even any franchise companies out there that do it?
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly where I come in, and
Okay.
I help you wade through that. So,
Hmm.
if you were to look at a list and start going down, looking at their
Hmm.
websites, reading up on them,
Hmm.
everyone's putting their best foot forward. You need to understand what's going on
Hmm.
behind the scenes. I get with over 100 brands every 6 months. We spend a
Hmm.
week together digging in deep on what's going on behind the
Hmm.
scenes, what their plans are for the new year, how successful are their
Hmm.
franchisees. You may go to a website today and it shows 3 locations.
Hmm.
Well, you don't know that there's actually 45 that have
Right.
recently sold that are in the
Hmm.
process of opening up. They're not
Hmm.
reflected yet. So it's information like that. It's understanding the franchisor's background. What have they done previously that
Hmm.
gives me confidence in their success? Because
Hmm.
that's going to be a partner of yours. That's an
Hmm.
important marriage
Right.
that I think sometimes people don't give enough weight
Hmm.
to. And so it's all these other dynamics that come into play. I mean, I
Hmm.
get to see not only my placements that I'm doing, but I also work with about 150 other brokers and as part of the largest network in the US. And
Hmm.
so I'm seeing on a weekly basis what is resonating with other people with different backgrounds. And so again, I just bring all that in
Hmm.
to helping you understand. Let's pull back,
Right.
the curtains and
Hmm.
understand this
Hmm.
holistically, not just what's on the
Hmm.
website.
Right. And clearly, if you're thinking about doing this, you've got to do your due diligence. You need to investigate, is this company financially strong? All of those various things. And I mean, there's a lot of different ways that you can be researching it, but, be looking at that because it's your time and your money that you're putting into this. And you don't want to invest in something that, might not come about. Right. Somebody the other day they were trying to convince me to invest in something that was doing something with Bitcoin. I'm like, no. And I understand that, could be something that is clearly something up and coming, but it's like, no, not so much.
It's important to diversify. And I have clients that, I'd say if your net worth, and this is including home equity, but if your net worth is below 200,000, I'd say it may be smart. I do have clients that, maybe they're 150 and they get into a business, but, we're very cautious. I think, not you're putting 200,000 into a business, but, having that net worth, just some kind of cushion. And obviously people well above that, that we work with, but, it's not right for everyone. And the timing's not right for everyone. So, I do give that honest feedback to clients as well.
Well, and clearly it's just like investing. There are things that are riskier, and so you can decide either that the company, the industry, or, things like the location, where you're hoping that this area gets built out, or, things like that. And so, there's a lot of things to weigh. So that's where it's great to work with a company like yours. So tell us again, in a nutshell, what services you provide for folks.
Yeah, so I share, great resources. I share an overview of franchising. I get to know you, ask you the right questions, help you understand what that framework should be in your case of how you analyze businesses. And then I introduce you to opportunities that, again, resonate with others with similar backgrounds around the country that would also be a good fit and are available in your local market. And we give you a very manageable group to work with. So you're not overwhelmed at all these brands, but instead we really
there's 50 companies usually.
We pick the ones that are the best fit. And, like I said, 85-90% of my clients end up in an industry they never thought they'd be in. Well, if they just started going out and researching on the website, they're going to go to industries that maybe they thought they're interested in, but wouldn't be the best
or that
fit.
they had a background in.
Exactly. So it is a lot of fun, again, just to see people's eyes open to, hey, there's an opportunity that could really fit in with my lifestyle. And, oh, I know someone else that has a complementary business. We could become referral partners. And, oh, I really like what the day-to-day would look like. And, oh, my wife has a brother who lives in town that could maybe step in and run the business. All these pieces start coming together once we start looking at things from a business owner standpoint. And every business is a bunch of widgets. It's or different components. You've got marketing and sales, you've got operations, technology. It's like, how does it all fit together? How does the business make money? And then how do we kind of plug and play?
Right. I love the concept of matchmaking. You need to figure out how to put that in your marketing materials. Because that really is what you're doing. And you're, this is something long-term. Not just, hey, we want to do it for 6 months and then go do something else. You're setting up franchisees to be part of those organizations for hopefully many years.
Absolutely. And it's so rewarding to me to have past clients referring new clients to me. A lot of that happens, and most of my clients come back and buy additional locations. So, that's an indication that they're thriving, they're doing well, they want to expand. I've personally bought additional locations of brands that we've been invested in. So to me, that's where I get my validation is, seeing those success stories, hearing about the life change, the lifestyle change. Again, nothing is easy. But either you're building someone else's empire or you're building your own. Where would you rather put forth your effort and make the investments now? They'll pay off down the road.
I love it. So again, Jon, tell us how people find you and connect with you.
So come out to our website, FranBridgeConsulting.com, sign up for our newsletter, reach out to me, connect with me on LinkedIn. Would love to jump on even a 10-minute call and get to know you and share some thoughts.
Perfect. I love it. Well, do you have any final thoughts for everyone?
No, I'd say, activity breeds activity. Don't be afraid to dip a toe in the water. You're not committing to anything. But I think education empowers you, and it doesn't take that much time to get a basic understanding of what's out there.
Perfect. I love it. Well, we need to chat again, especially, as the pandemic continues, or as we figure out what the heck our new normal is, to see, what have things settled down and what are new opportunities? That's going to be one of those things that I think, more and more we're going to see because we're working differently. And so, it'll be interesting to chat about that. And so I look forward to having you on the program again.
Absolutely. We would welcome the opportunity, and appreciate you having me on today. It's been a fun conversation.
Perfect. I love it. Well, I'm Deb Creer. I've been having a terrific conversation with Jon Ostenson of Franchise Consulting. His company is FranBridge Consulting and Capital. See, I just got myself all messed up here. I was just so excited. So, Jon, again, thank you so much. I am Deb Creer, and until next time, everyone have a great day.
Tune in for our next program for even more trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. The Business Power Hour, hosted by Deb Creer, is proud to be part of the C-Suite Network.